Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. You know, one of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
It's Monday the 30th of December. I'm Jamie East, and on today's episode, we're looking back at the biggest stories from September and October of 2024. We saw Trump and Harris go head-to-head in their only debate, Israel carry out a devastating pager attack on Hamas, and the King gets heckled in Australia.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
but not the news.
The end of September saw party conference season kick off, but Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer was under quite a bit of pressure as he made his leader's speech between the anger over the cut to the winter fuel allowance and the grim warnings about austerity in a £22 billion hole in public finances. He was also facing polling that showed his personal popularity had dropped 45 points to below that of Rishi Sunak. But apart from a slip of the tongue that saw him call for the release of the sausages instead of hostages, he delivered a strong speech with plenty of policy, including a new approach to migration, a pledge to crack down on benefit fraud and ease inflation. He was also promising real change.
An NHS facing the future. Town centres thriving. Borders controlled at last. That is what people will get, and mark my words, we will deliver it.
The Labour Party conference wrapped up, though, with an embarrassing defeat for the new government, as members voted in favour of a motion to reinstate the universal winter fuel allowance.
As I said earlier, shouting at me doesn't do anybody any favours. That was carried.
The resolution's non-binding, but it's still a sign of the anger within the party ranks at the controversial move, which was intended as the first step in filling the black hole in the public finances. Sharon Graham, the Secretary-General of Unite, spoke strongly against the cuts, pointing out that the UK is the world's 6th largest economy and that austerity Mark II is really not needed.
We won't get any gold badges for shaving peanuts off our debt. These fiscal rules are self-imposed, and the decision to keep them is hanging like a noose around our necks.
The last week in September saw the Tory party conference in Birmingham, which began with party chairman Richard Fuller apologising to members for the poor election results. Temporary leader Rishi Sunak addressed attendees and called for party unity, asking them to end the division, backbiting and squabbling. His call didn't seem to have any impact on the 4 candidates competing for the final 2 slots in the leadership contest, with Tom Tugendhat, James Cleverly, Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch all doing media rounds before the next round of voting. Badenoch was busy making headlines at supporting Israel and saying that when it comes to immigration, not all cultures are equally valid. She also hit out at the levels of maternity pay.
Statutory maternity pay. It is a function of tax. Tax comes from people who are working. We're taking from one group of people and giving to another. This, in my view, is excessive.
Robert Jenrick disagreed with Badenoch's stance, but he took a strongly anti-migration line as he hoped to appeal to the party's right-wing voters.
The age of mass migration must end. It's placing immense pressure on public services and on community cohesion. You can't integrate 1.2 million people into a small country each year. What I want to do is to set a legally binding cap on migration.
Tuesday the 10th of September saw the 2 US presidential candidates face off in a debate that looked like a critical inflection point as November's election got closer. The only other debate of the election campaign saw Biden stumble and ultimately quit the race, so there was huge pressure on Vice President Kamala Harris to deliver a strong performance against Trump. The debate was watched by tens of millions of Americans live on ABC and across the US news networks. Harris performed well, focusing on abortion, a key election topic for Democrats.
You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot?
In what was often a fiery debate, Trump didn't succeed in staying on message at all times.
In Springfield,
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame.
And it turned out the only person who thought that Donald Trump won the presidential debate on Tuesday evening was, Donald Trump. Post-debate snap polls all showed Kamala Harris as a clear winner, with even Fox News conceding she outperformed their favourite candidate. Buoyed by a good performance, Democrats were keen to schedule another debate, with more than 50 days still to go until the election. The debate performance wasn't the only bad news either, as the world's most famous childless cat lady Taylor Swift finally weighed in with an endorsement for Kamala. The vice presidential candidate Tim Walz heard the news about the endorsement live on MSNBC.
I am incredibly grateful, first of all, to Taylor Swift. I say that also as a cat owner, a fellow cat owner. Look, Swifties, you heard it. We know that it's there. That was eloquent, and it was clear. And that's the type of courage we need in America to stand up.
September and October saw Israel step up its aggression against Hezbollah and Hamas as the one-year anniversary of the October the 7th attacks approached. September saw dramatic developments as what appeared to be an Israeli intelligence-led operation involving pagers and walkie-talkies exploding led to the deaths of over 30 people and injuring thousands more. On Tuesday the 17th of September, pagers used by Hezbollah members exploded, causing injuries to the face, hands and abdomens of those holding them. 9 people were killed and hundreds injured. Earlier, Israel had announced their intention to broaden the war against Hamas to include Hezbollah over their attacks on the border with Lebanon. It appears the explosives were inserted into the pagers, which Hezbollah were using due to concerns over the security of their mobile phones, and then triggered remotely. Naomi Bar Yaakov is from the Chatham House think tank, and she said it could be a sign of serious trouble ahead.
The nature and scope of this attack is unprecedented. It sends a very strong message to Hezbollah that Israel is not seeking any quiet. It's not seeking to de-escalate, and I think that, unfortunately, we're heading towards a regional escalation.
She was proved right, as there was a second wave of explosions across Lebanon as walkie-talkies and electronic devices appeared again to be remotely detonated. The larger explosion saw 20 people killed, more than 450 seriously injured, as once again it appeared Israel was targeting Hezbollah operatives and their communication networks. The first wave of the attack stunned military experts and caused outcry, including from the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, who called the explosions deeply alarming. Israel hasn't claimed responsibility for the attacks, but US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, speaking in Cairo, was keen to emphasise the US wasn't part of the plan.
The United States did not know about, nor was it involved in these incidents. We've been very clear about the importance of avoiding any steps that could further escalate the conflict that we're trying to resolve.
There was more to come too, as the Israeli Air Force killed Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah in a targeted airstrike on Beirut on September the 27th, sparking a furious reaction from Iran. And then in mid-October, there was another major development, as just over a year after the massacre that saw the deaths of 1,200 Israelis, the IDF caught and killed leader Yahya Sinwar. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu addressed the nation.
He who killed and caused the worst massacre ever since the Holocaust, he was killed by our soldiers, our heroic soldiers, and we have finished our accounts with him.
Despite a year-long manhunt, the eventual death of the Hamas leader appeared to be almost accidental, and it took a number of hours for Israel to confirm his identity. The hope is that this will signal the end of a brutal conflict that has seen Gaza destroyed by Israeli bombardments and over 42,000 Palestinians killed. US President Biden called it a good day for Israel, the United States and the world, and Vice President Kamala Harris made it clear that this should be a turning point in the war.
Hamas is decimated and its leadership is eliminated. This moment gives us an opportunity to finally end the war in Gaza.
Ukraine continued to struggle to get traction against Russia's attacking forces throughout September and October as a combination of glide bombs and ferocious waves of attacks pushed back Ukraine's defenders. Ukrainian President Zelensky was trying hard to get allies, including the US, signed up to his peace plan, but it was a struggle. Late September saw the UN General Assembly meet, where British Foreign Secretary David Lammy gave a strong speech condemning Putin and his empire built on lies and corruption.
I stand here as a black man whose ancestors were taken in chains from Africa at the barrel of a gun to be enslaved. Imperialism, I know it when I see it.
UK PM Keir Starmer also called out Russia for showing its face in the UN building, while Denmark's Prime Minister condemned China for its role in supporting Russia and warned of consequences. Zelensky made a formal address to the Assembly, calling for a real and just peace for Ukraine and warning that Russia's war crimes cannot go unchecked. He also warned that Putin's reckless behaviour could see a nuclear disaster which would affect millions across Europe.
Now Putin does seem to be planning attacks on our nuclear power plants and the infrastructure, aiming to disconnect the plants from the power grid with the help of satellites, by the way, satellites of other countries.
Late September saw the Ukrainian president head to the White House to present his victory plan. He's found himself out of favour with Republicans as Donald Trump initially refused to meet him, and a visit to a munitions plant in Pennsylvania led to a dispute with Republican Speaker Mike Johnson. Not to be outdone, Putin was busy escalating his threats in a bid to slow any decision to let Ukraine use long-range weapons.
We reserve the right to use nuclear weapons in the event of aggression against Russia, including if the enemy, using conventional weapons, creates a critical threat to our sovereignty.
After the White House meeting, Zelensky and Kamala Harris held a joint press conference at which she criticised those, including Trump, who want Ukraine to surrender territory to Russia.
These proposals are the same of those of Putin. And let us be clear, they are not proposals for peace. Instead, they are proposals for surrender, which is dangerous and unacceptable.
Still to come on the Standout 7, the King gets heckled in Australia and Richard Gadd grabs glory at the Emmys. Right after this.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
Welcome back.
The deaths that occurred were all avoidable, and those who lived in the tower were badly failed over a number of years by those who were responsible for ensuring the safety of the building.
That was Sir Martin Moore-Bick, who led the 7-year inquiry into the Grenfell fire that killed 72 people. His report blamed decades of failure by central government and pointed the finger of blame at several multinational construction companies who he said made the combustible materials that contributed to the tragedy and misled the market. Prime Minister Keir Starmer issued an apology for an incident he said should never have happened.
I want to start with an apology on behalf of the British state to each and every one of you, and indeed to all of the families affected by this tragedy.
There have been no charges or prosecutions of anyone involved, and London Mayor Sadiq Khan was among those urging the Crown Prosecution Service to take action. The chair of the Grenfell United Group, Natasha Elcock, says the government needs to move quickly.
This country has been failed by governments of all political persuasions. Our expectation is your government will break old habits and implement all the recommendations made by Sir Martin Moore-Bick's report.
After the publication of the report, there was growing pressure for justice to take its course. However, a former director of public prosecutions, Lord MacDonald, was warning it could take years before charges are brought and that any trials mightn't take place until 2029. The Met Police says it needs at least 18 more months to finish compiling the evidence, while the 3 largest companies accused of systematic dishonesty have said they don't accept the findings of the inquiry. Deputy PM and Secretary of State for Housing and Communities Angela Rayner says successive governments have gotten their priorities wrong.
Greed and deregulation had been put before safety, and that's what needs to change, is that actually the number one priority of any government is to keep its citizens safe, and this is part of that process.
King Charles was busy in October on a tour of Australia, but the welcome wasn't entirely warm.
You committed genocide!
That was Indigenous Australian Senator Lydia Thorpe making her feelings known on the British Empire and the King. She did at least wait until he'd finished his speech before making her voice heard, all while dressed in a possum overcoat. She spoke to Sky News and said she had an important point to make about the plight of the Aboriginal people.
I did it for truth-telling about the royals who caused so much devastation to not only our people, but Indigenous people around the world.
David Littleproud, leader of Australia's centre-right National Party, wasn't particularly impressed.
This is what Senator Thorpe does. And sadly, it's become embarrassing for her. At times, it's just about trying to grab attention for herself.
PM Keir Starmer joined King Charles in Samoa on Thursday for the Commonwealth Summit. There's been considerable political pressure in advance of the meeting on the issue of reparations for Britain's historical role in the slave trade, and it's expected to be a heated topic of discussion at Friday's session, which will see 55 nations in attendance. Downing Street's been trying to ensure the issues of reparations isn't on the formal agenda, but there is a background conversation underway. Speaking in Samoa, King Charles acknowledged painful aspects of Britain's past, but didn't directly address reparations.
None of us can change the past, but we can commit with all our hearts to learning its lessons and to finding creative ways to right inequalities that endure.
Political activist Linda Bellos says there's nowhere to hide when it comes to the history of slavery and colonialism.
This is Britain's responsibility. Britain knowingly took human beings, sold also to the United States of America, and benefited directly.
We also saw the Emmys deliver truckloads of awards to the great and good in the world of TV. While Shogun and The Bear picked up their fair share, there was plenty of British success too. Baby Reindeer, Richard Gadd's story of an obsessive stalker in the world of comedy, landed 4 on the night, including a writing and acting award for him and for co-star Jessica Gunning. As a standalone series, that's a huge achievement, and despite the pending lawsuit from the woman who claims the story is based on her, Richard had some heartfelt words as he picked up one of the biggest awards in TV.
I don't know much about this life, I don't know why we're here, none of that, but I do know that nothing lasts forever, and no matter how bad it gets always better. Yeah, so if you're struggling, keep going, and I promise you things will be okay. Thank you so much for this award.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes, we'll give you the world.
Over the last 75 years, over 10,000 chemicals have been introduced to our food supply. Yet the EU only allows 300 food additives. But at Thrive Market, we bring our members the highest quality brands and restrict more than 1,000 ingredients found at conventional grocery stores. Making the switch is easy with our Healthy Swap scanner, which finds better versions of all your favorite pantry, snacking, and home essentials without the added junk, dyes, and fillers. Plus, it's all delivered straight to your door. So if you're looking to shop at a grocery store that actually cares about your health, go to thrivemarket.com/podcast and you'll get 30% off your first order and a free gift.